Hello, good evening. Chris Hughes from Rebound on Upstreamedia's Facebook and YouTube Live daily show. I hope you're all well. I'm really excited about tonight's guest, especially with London Lions about to embark on a European adventure. I thought it was really fitting to try and get more players in, learn a bit about new signings and a bit about the club. And I'm really excited tonight. I've got Byron Mullens, got an amazing story to tell. Look forward to having a chat. Hi, Byron. I hope you're well.
Yes, sir. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. We arranged a date about a week or so ago, and I'm not sure whether yourself or the team had actually posted about the pre-season trip to Belgium, and I appreciate you've only played yesterday in a different country. You're back in the UK today. Thought maybe to start talking a bit about that adventure. Obviously, people back home may have seen the second game, but there was also the first game as well. What was it like travelling there? How was that experience for you?
Yeah, the traveling was it was quite a trip for our first trip. We got on our first bus and we actually broke down about an hour and a half into the trip. I think we had like a water leak in the engine and stuff, and then we had to wait there for another bus to come pick us up. So we it was on the side of the highway for probably an hour, hour and a half. Then finally got a new bus, and which was smaller than the bus that we were on originally, and so we were all kind of crammed on it. We ended up getting to Osted about 6 o'clock, and our game was at 7. And then I guess Vince talked their coach into pushing the game back to 7:30. So we got maybe 20 minutes of rest, not really any rest at all. Got to the gym and got ready, got taped, got dressed, and it was tip off time by that time. So the first game was kind of rough for us, but the second game was a lot better, which was the game I believe that was live streamed. Uh, so it was quite of a weekend. It was quite of a first trip for us, but it was good. It was something we needed.
Definitely, and we were talking off air before we came on, but you've actually not been not been in the UK for that long, so obviously quite a lot to break down and you keep busy, sort of thing. How are you finding London? You
Mhm.
had time to sort of go out and explore the city? Just this sort of get in on a last week, and you're off on a friendly trip this weekend. It must be quite a busy time for
Yeah,
yourself.
yeah. London's been great to me so far. Besides, I haven't been able to get out a lot as much as I want to because due to the rain and stuff. But the first Saturday I got here, well, I got here on Thursday, and then the Saturday we had off from practice, so I decided just to go out and walk around. So I just typed in my maps, where Buckingham Palace and stuff was, and it gave me like it was like a 3 mile route, so right down the river. So I just walked out of my hotel and went down there and walked around Buckingham Palace, went down to Wellington Arch, and then by the time I got back to my hotel, I did 11 miles. So I think it took me like 3.5 hours to do 11 miles. But the walk down there was great because I was seeing all these things that I wanted to see. But the walk back was like, okay, I already seen that. I was trying to hightail it back to the apartment so I could get some rest. But no, it was a great time. I enjoyed everything I seen. Took a lot of pictures, sent back home. I'm waiting for we had today off. I should have went and walked around, but it was such a Sunday and Monday was brutal to us, so I really took today and just relaxed.
Sounds good. I know I try to go to London when I can. It's a lovely city, and like yourself, when I go, I end up walking miles. Just especially where you're saying about Buckingham Palace, you've got quite a lot of
Hmm.
attractions to see there. It's quite easy to walk from one bit to the other. You've got Hyde Park and lots of
Hmm.
lovely places to see. Obviously, you mentioned about sending the photos back home to your family. I understand your mum was born in England. Tell us a bit about her journey, because I say from you having that dual passport, obviously opens up a lot of doors of opportunity as per this one with the London Lions.
Hmm. Yeah, my mom was born in Middlesex, England. Her dad was in the Air Force here, and then she moved back to the States when she was like 8 or 9 years old. So she's told me some stories like when I was a kid, stories I probably can't remember now, but it's just crazy that this opportunity came up for me to come out here and play in this part of my career. Obviously, I've been trying to come out here and play for the national team for many years since 2012. due to injury, couldn't play there. But and in 16, I had an ankle surgery that I had in 16, so I couldn't play. And then there was last year that I really tried to play for the team, but unfortunately the team I was on in South Korea, they wouldn't, they wasn't going to let me go for reasons of, I don't know, injury or whatever their reasonings was. So unfortunately I wasn't able to play for the team. But a big reason why I came here is because I told Vince, you know, one of the things that I really wanted to do was, play in November for the team. And obviously, it's a no-brainer. He's like, absolutely. So that was a big role in me coming to London to play.
Definitely, and I think it's lovely to hear that you have aspiration to play for the national team. Do you think playing with London that could be a real possibility? So I know in the past there have been players who haven't been able to play, maybe for insurance reasons in terms of the contracts. Do you think you play for
Mhm.
Lions actually opens that door for you to play for the national team?
Well, I think it's going to help me because, I mean, anywhere I go, like I said, I was in South Korea last year. Whether I'm in South Korea or Spain or wherever, there's always going to be them teams that say, no, we don't want you playing for a national team due to risk of injury. And then you're sitting there and you're fighting with the teams and fighting with the management of, hey, I want to go play for my national team. So it's always a fight and it's always an argument with those guys. But here in London, I know we're trying to put, basketball obviously on the map here and make history. So it was no question to Vince when I brought it up to him. There was two things I wanted to talk to Vince before I signed my contract, and one of them was, hey, I want to play for the national team, and the other thing was, I'm having a baby due in January, so we're trying to talk my fiance into having the baby here, but if we can't, that he was all on, everybody was on board about me going back home for the birth and stuff like that. So those were my two questions that I had before I signed the contract here.
Definitely. Let's say congratulations. I hope everything goes well. Do you know if it's boy or girl? What do you know what you're guessing?
Yeah, we're having a boy, so
Oh, so
having a boy. So
definitely. Just a lot of people when they're not sporting parents, they have ideas what their child will be. Do you think you want
hmm
your junior to be a basketball player following your steps?
yeah, probably so. Probably so. I know my son now. He's 8 years old and he's ate up with basketball, man. It's just like I don't know. He's just kind of hit a switch from when he about I think last year, a year and a half ago. He was playing everything, football, baseball, soccer, and he just hit some switch. He was just like, just strictly basketball. And I'm like, you don't want to play baseball this summer? He's like, nope, I want to play basketball. So he just took it and ran with it. And I mean, he's getting it down. It's just like, he's just a natural athlete. He just gets it. So if my other son wants to play ball, absolutely, let's go. But it's nothing I'm going to pressure him on or put it onto him or anything like that. So.
No, of course. So would this be sorry? Would this be child number two for you? Do you have any other children?
Yeah, just the one other boy. Yeah. He just turned 8 on the 29th.
That's amazing to hear, and fingers crossed that everything goes well. Um, so I thought we'd start talking a bit about your career in a bit more depth. So you went to college at now, Winchester, and sort of high school in Ohio State. What were some of the
Mhm.
decision factors on those decisions go today? Was it stay local? Was that really important, or were there other factors in play?
Yeah, so I'm from Columbus, Ohio. So I really didn't start playing basketball till I was 13, 14 years old. And by that time I was seventh grade, I believe so. And by the time I got to my freshman year, Ohio State was offering me a full scholarship to play basketball there. I committed to a guy named John Gross, who was assistant coach at Ohio State my freshman year. And from my freshman year to my senior year, or until the time I got to Ohio State, I talked to John pretty much every day. And my thing, I told John, well, at the time, the rule was that you can still leave high school. And when I committed to Thad Matta, I told him, I said, I'm going to come to Ohio State and play. Um, but if the rule, if the rule doesn't change where I can leave out of high school, I'm going to leave out of high school. I'm not going to come to college. And we were all on board on that, all on the same page. by the time I got to Ohio State at the end of the summer, going into starting basketball season, John Gross leaves. He goes to Ohio University, which kind of hurt me because John was like pretty much like a father figure to me. Um, so that kind of hurt me, So that whole year was kind of messed up in a way. Me and Thad really didn't talk that much. So when it became the time to make a decision, am I going to leave or am I going to go? I really didn't have any reason to stay because I didn't have any connection with any of the coaching staff there or anything like that. But um, I don't regret leaving. I had a great year at Ohio State. I enjoyed my time. I was at Ohio State. I was on Ohio State campus from my freshman year until the time I left, pretty much. So uh, I had a lot of time on Ohio State campus.
Uh, Obviously, you say there was the difficulty with that coach going, and you stayed a year. But were there some highlights there? Because obviously, it'd be disappointing to learn what you'd learned, but were there some actual memorable moments from that time that you'd take forward with you?
No, we had a great team. I mean, we had Evan Turner was one of the big stars on our team. Other players like John Diebler, David Lighty. I believe John was a big player in Turkey. Dave Lighty's in France right now, I believe. So no, I mean the highest ranks we got. We started the season out maybe 13-0. They had some injuries, unfortunate injuries to David Lighty who went down. But I think we were ranked 10th, so we were right there. We came in second in the Big Ten. We made the NCAA tournament. We got upset, unfortunately, by Siena that year, but no, it was I mean, I had a great time. I enjoyed my time on campus at Ohio State, and once a Buckeye, always a Buckeye. So, uh, and being from Columbus, I stayed home, so I enjoyed it.
Definitely, and as a fan of the game and watching lots of other content that people be putting out, there's a lot of people who are invested in the next generation always sort of looked for hoping to the next generation finds that next fit. And obviously, being a father yourself, you're probably thinking that for your children when they make the move, if
Mm.
they want to do further education. What advice would you give to a 17, 18-year-old player might be listening, watching it today, thinking about where to go? What advice would you give them about finding maybe the right fit for them in terms of their education, but also basketball?
I mean, my thing is, I mean, I'll be honest with them. I'm gonna tell them like I told my son. Obviously, education is very key. Um, but don't let it be so far. I mean, if you have something that you're so dead set on and you got something that's working for you, go for it. I mean that you don't have. My thing is, I'm not gonna sit here and demand my kid go to college. That's there's hundreds of thousands of people that are out there that gets into these 50, $60,000 college debts, and now they can't even find a job. You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
yeah, it's great to have that degree, but at the end of the day, it's just a piece of paper. So I don't know. I don't know what the honest answer is. Um, that's what I tell people when people ask me like, why didn't you go back to school? Why didn't you? Well, I'm a basketball player, right? So I went to college to find a job, right? So, and I was fortunate enough to find a great job after going to college for 1 year, and that was, I got drafted to the NBA. So, obviously, that's money I can't pass up on because, if I go back to college like Evan Turner, he did, he ended up breaking his back, in a game. Fortunate enough, he came back stronger, and the rest is history. But you have situations like that. So, um, I don't know. Like I said, education is key. I'm not telling kids not to go to school. So don't get my words twisted when I say that. But if you have something, you have a goal out there, go for it. Don't let someone tell you that you can't achieve it because that person is telling you that they can't achieve it and they're trying to bring you down too. So
definitely. I think that's really good advice. I know myself, I got myself a degree. You think it's the right thing at the time because I think your college or high school, they say, go get that degree, go get, they want to
right.
say they sent X amount of people to uni and what's not, and it's not always
Hmm.
the best fit. And obviously,
Hmm.
it worked out for you. You went to that NBA team. When did you know you were on that path to get that NBA contract? Was it during your time at Ohio State? Was it during the off season, the McDonald's All American
No,
boys
no, like
team, or?
No, like I said, I didn't start playing basketball until my freshman year, until eighth grade
Oh,
year of middle school. So I just played it because it was something to do. It was something that kept me out of trouble, and I wasn't good at it when I first started. Uh, but once I started, traveling around, meeting friends and stuff, I kind of took it serious, and I just did it every day. I didn't have a social life. If you weren't on my basketball team, you weren't my friend because that's all I knew at that time, and I took it. I just ran with it 100%. So by the time, uh, by the time my junior year in high school, I kind of knew, like, hey, I'm going to really make something out of this. It kind of really just took off for me. I mean, it took off fast. I went from really not being ranked in the nation of high school, and then by the time my senior year, I was ranked number one player in the nation. And the NBA draft, I was in the mock draft, I was the number one pick coming out of high school. So just in really a 2 year time frame, everything just kind of took off. Um, so by that time, I kind of knew like, okay, I could, I'm gonna be an NBA player. So yeah, just lucky and blessed.
definitely. And when I was research, I saw that you were part of the McDonald's All American 2018,
Hmm.
and where it's like a West versus East. I think your team had amazing time. You had Drew Holiday, Kemba Walker, Greg Malone, Brandon
Hmm.
Jennings. Do you remember that game? What was it like? What were you
Yeah,
thinking going
yeah,
into the
I
game?
remember. Yeah, it was crazy because the McDonald's game was supposed to be broken up for East Coast players and West Coast players. Um, and I was kind of mad because my teammate Ohio State William Buford was a McDonald's All American as well, but they wanted to even the teams out. So they put me actually on the West squad, and they put Will on the East squad. So we were on separate squads. So um, but yeah, man, that was a great time. There's some good players. I mean, Kimba Walker was a part of that, and I played with Kimba in Charlotte. He went to UConn for 3 or 4 years, I think 4 years. So we had Tyreek Evans, Brandon, like you said, Brandon Jennings. Had a lot of DeMar DeRozan was there. We had a lot of NBA guys on that 2008 squad. There was a lot of talent.
Yeah, from that, I imagine it was amazing day to part of. From that game, when you were in that game, were there people you're like, wow,
Mhm.
they don't really do really well? Who stuck out for you in that game? Was there sort of people who had a really good day, went off for 30, 40 points, or who really impressed you on
Yeah,
that
pretty
day?
much. Yeah, pretty much the McDonald's All American games or all the All American games are pretty much a guard oriented game, right? So nobody wants to see the big man. You become the MVP. So Brandon Jennings was a heck of a player in that game. Kimba Walker, Tyreek Evans. I want to say Tyreek maybe won the MVP that game. I'm not really sure. Don't quote me on that. I'm not 100%. But DeMar DeRozan, I just remember DeMar DeRozan he was in the McDonald's All-American Dunk Contest that year, and that was like, man, it's just this kid's jumping out of the gym. I've never seen anything like this before. And then he was also a part of, I believe he was a part of the Jordan All-American game with me as well. And then we also played in a Elite 24 game up in Harlem, New York that year. So we got to travel and we got to be around each other a lot.
Definitely. I imagine it was quite a busy summer because obviously you mentioned about the draft, workouts.
Hmm.
Which one of those events do you think really sort of like either got you more awareness from these NBA scouts or one of your sort of favourite memories from those events? You obviously a very busy
Man, the
summer,
only
but I imagine.
yes, I got
Sorry?
some stories about the NBA. I got. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can
Yeah, I
hear you
got
fine, you
some.
carry on.
I got some. Okay. Yeah, I got some good stories from the NBA draft process. So I did. I think I did maybe 14 workouts for NBA teams, and they were like, you're in Oklahoma City one day, and you're leaving right after the workout. And you're going to Chicago, and then you're working out the next day, and this is 2 weeks straight, back to back to back to back to back. And I remember going in one hotel room, grabbing my key, going up to my room and like trying to get into my room. And I'm like, my room key's not working. And I'm like, what the heck's wrong? And I figured it out. I was going to the room that I was in the night before because it got to the point where I was in, I was in
Yeah.
15 different cities in 14 days. And I'm like, I'm an idiot because I'm going to like 324, which I was in Chicago, but my room in Milwaukee or whatever is a different room, and but it's different. It's crazy because obviously the NBA guys they know what schedule you're on. They know how many workouts you've been to before you got there, but you have to bring it. They don't care because that's a back to back, or that's 4 games in 6 days in NBA. They're going to test you. They know you're mentally broke, and physically broke down. It's just they want to see how much you can do and how far you're willing to push yourself. So it was tough because obviously you talk to all your friends and they're telling you, hey man, Boston has this conditioning workout that they put you through. So if you go work out for Boston, make sure it's the first workout on your list because you don't want to go to Boston after your seventh workout because you're going to be dead. And like I said, they know where you're coming from, but in your head, it's like, man, if I go here and I'm winded on this workout, they're going to think I'm out of shape. So it's just you just got to push through, and it's not so much really. I mean, obviously it's the workout process, but it's also the interview process that you have to pass too. If you can't sit there and talk to the GM or talk to the owner of this team, and you're sitting there stuttering on your words and not looking at him in the face, and that goes a long way too because they're putting their tag, their franchise on your back, and it's all about how you carry yourself. And because in the public eye, if you do something bad and one person sees it, it's going to get to 10 people. But if you do something good to somebody, it might get to two or three. So they look at all that stuff, man. It's just crazy. And they know absolutely everything about you before you even get there. They've talked to family, friends, teachers. So it's just crazy about how much they know about you.
I know the more I hear about it, the more crazy it seems. That makes the award sweeter, I guess. And I imagine, like as a professional, you always think about how you could do better. Uh, Looking back at that draft process, was there anything you thought, oh, I wish I did this differently, or maybe that didn't go as well as I thought it did?
Yeah, there was a lot of interviews I wish I could have took back. My very first workout I did that I remember, like you said, is there something that you remember? And to this day, I remember I can see myself. I was in Chicago, my first workout, and the interview process, I was just like sweating. It was hot in Chicago anyway, but they brought me in this room. They set me in the middle of the room, and they had 3 tables around me. One on each side and one across the middle, and everybody from the trainer to the chefs to everybody is in there talking to you, and you're the center of attention. And this is your first interview. By the 14th interview, you got it down. You know what questions they're going to ask. It's You're adding stuff to it, maybe. So, but that's the nervous I've ever been, in an interview. Um, like, and that's what I say about the school systems and stuff. I wish the school systems would teach schools about stuff like real life situations, stuff like that, because I didn't run through any practice tests before, going into an interview like that. Um, but that's one I probably wish I could have got back because they were asking me basic questions, but I was so nervous. I was answering them off the wall, and it's just like, just calm down. So, but that's one memory that I'll always remember.
And obviously, you got drafted, been traded. What was that
Yeah.
rookie year like? 'Cause that must have been amazing to say you're playing the NBA. It's probably what you dream of when you got into basketball. What was that like?
Yeah, so I didn't go to the draft, which I thank God I didn't because after the draft, they just told me it was all just interviews. As soon as you get drafted, you go back to the green room and you're interviewed for the rest of the night. But so so I worked out for Chicago twice, actually. They brought me back in for another workout. I had a great workout up in Detroit, and Joe Dumars was the guy there, and he's telling me, if you're still stuck or if you're still around at 16, we're gonna pick you at 16. I'm like, okay. And some stuff got changed in the draft process. Timberwolves came up and got 3 picks within the first 17. Um, but anyway, I end up dropping to 24, and my agent calls me, and he's like, "Hey, you're getting drafted to the Dallas Mavericks." And I'm like, "Heck yeah! Like this is my team growing up. They had Dirk, Steve Nash, Michael Finley, all these guys. I'm like, this is my favorite team. This is a dream come true. Whatever. This is a dream come true to be drafted anyway." But he's like, well, hold on. They're just drafting you and they're going to trade you. they're going to trade you to Oklahoma City because it was Dallas at 24, Oklahoma City at 25, and Chicago Bulls at 26. So Oklahoma City wanted me, so they called up to Dallas before Chicago could, and so it was basically like a flip. They got Rodriguez Dubois from France, I believe, and so 15 minutes later, I was a Dallas Maverick for about 15 minutes, and then they traded my draft rights to Oklahoma City. So I'm like, okay, cool. So I had a family down in Oklahoma City from Ohio, so it was a perfect situation for me. And so I get drafted, and about 30 minutes later, Sam Presti and them guys are calling me like, hey, obviously welcome to the NBA, welcome to Oklahoma City. Pack your stuff, you're coming down here tomorrow. So it was very quick. So I packed a little bag, flew down to Oklahoma City, had the interview. They picked James Harden that year. It was me, James Harden, and Robert Vaden. We had the interview. We stayed down there for the weekend, 3 or 4 days, did some workouts, got tests, um, and then flew back home. And then and came back maybe a month before the season. The whole process of picking out your house and where you're gonna live at and all that stuff. It was a surreal moment.
Definitely. What were your first impression franchise? Obviously, they're quite a new one, being formed from Seattle Sonics. What were your sort of first
hmm
thoughts about it going in? What did it feel like? What were some of those sort of first formative memories you had from that experience? I imagine it's amazing for you, like
Yeah,
to
so we
go
had a
place where you,
looking back on it now. Obviously when I was in the moment, I mean, we had a great team. We had James Harden, Kevin Durant, Serge Ibaka, KD, obviously Russell Westbrook. Uh, but we were young. I mean, no one even saw like obviously when you're there every day, you see these stars these people are going to grow into. But now when I tell people like, hey, I played with these guys and we were all on the same team, it's like, man, what was that like? Obviously, there was a lot of button heads on that squad because of the superstars that everybody was growing into. It was pretty cool because I was a rookie, obviously, and I'm like, man, this is a young team. There's a possibility I can really break into the starting lineup. My first year was we had a rookie coach too, not a rookie coach, but a second year coach, Scott Brooks. Um, and he needed to win, so he was not really trusting on the rookies. So I didn't really play that much. But my second year was going to be a really good year for me. And going in, I ended up having to have this heart surgery done from some stuff I had issues with in high school, and I think that really set me back uh, going into my second year. Uh, but I had a great time in Oklahoma City, man. I loved it. The fans were great. Everybody was great down there.
definitely, I'd imagine it's quite exciting. Like you say, also the egos of the stars to be like with Harden,
hmm
Russell Westbrook, KD. Were there sometimes what was like funny memories? Imagine you're with each other the whole season. I'm sure you have lots of funny
hmm
stories you could tell. Were there any ones that sort of stood out for you when you think back now that that was a really funny moment, or I really enjoyed doing that assist,
Uh,
or what was some things you really enjoyed those times?
no, I mean obviously all them guys were great people. I mean outside looking in, you would think these huge superstars. I mean KD was the nicest guy one of the nicest guys I've ever met. You know, but I mean there was some great memories. There were some funny times like during games. I remember we were playing Memphis Grizzlies in the playoffs. And it was a game we went to like 3 or 4 overtimes against them. And the end of the game, KD would come down. He would take the game winning shot and miss it, and then Russell would get mad. And then at the end of the first overtime, Russell's like, "No, I'm taking the shot," and he would miss it, and then KD's mad, and they were just going back and forth like because they wanted to take the last shot. Uh, Finally we beat Memphis that year, and then end up losing to Dallas Mavericks in the Western Conference Finals, and they end up beating Miami Heat in the championship. So it was the first my rookie year we lost to the Lakers in the first round. They won the championship. The second year we lost to Dallas Mavericks, who ended up winning the championship. And then the third year I was in Oklahoma City. It was a lockout year, a shortened season. I got traded to Charlotte, but that's the year they went to the finals, and they ended up losing to obviously the Miami Heat. Um, but I mean, if that team would have stuck together, they definitely would have won a championship. I mean, just in the short period of time of 3 years of where we came from. We lost to the champion 3 years in a row. So who's to say, that fourth year, fifth year, whatever, if everybody would have stuck together, it would have been crazy.
Definitely. And I imagine you play at some amazing arenas, amazing atmospheres. And obviously, being a bit of a Dallas fan, you probably enjoyed playing against the Dallas Mavs. Um, what were some of
Yeah.
like the best arenas to play in, or maybe some of the best atmosphere games that you're part of?
Man, I tell you, anywhere LeBron's at is a great atmosphere. When he was in, it's just crazy because when he was in Cleveland before he left to Miami, Cleveland was just, it was a show. It wasn't, you weren't going just to a basketball game. You were going to a concert, type of feeling, but then when he left Cleveland and went down to Miami, Miami was, it was crazy because they had Bosh, Dwayne Wade, LeBron James. Now it became a show and it was, then back in Cleveland, it was just a game. No, I mean, it wasn't as much hype as it was when LeBron was there. But anywhere LeBron is at, it was crazy. Playing against the Lakers, when Kobe was there, all the stars coming out. You see that stuff on TV, but then when you're there and it's crazy because the Lakers, they black out their crowd. I don't know if you noticed that. They'll black out the crowd and the light is only on the court. But if you go to a Clippers game, it's bright in there. You see all the fans. But the Lakers games are crazy. Like I said, Miami. Going to Boston, the Boston Celtics is nice because you got that historical feel, the TD Garden, and then going to playing in New York at the Garden there is just it's crazy.
Definitely. And as a professional, how easy it's to block out that star LeBron factor if you got the atmosphere, or you say the
hmm
bright lights, the Clippers fans, or the noisy Madison Square Garden. Did it feel like a different game? What would you do to sort of get in the zone? Because I imagine it could have been a distraction if you weren't fully
hmm
prepared.
Yeah, absolutely. You gotta be prepared. I think you know high school probably prepared that to me for me. Playing in big AAU tournaments and traveling like the way we did, which playing at a big college where you're traveling and playing against big schools prepares you for it. But obviously, the NBA is completely different than those two levels. And but at the end of the day, it's you're playing basketball. It's something that you love, it's something that you know how to do. You play it your whole life. Obviously, when you're playing against some stars like Kobe, thank God I didn't have to guard him, right? So, uh, but yeah, man, it's awesome because I remember watching. I remember recording Lakers games when I was 12 and 13 years old, and painting my room in Lakers colors, when I was a kid. And now I'm sitting here playing against, Shaq or Kobe or whoever. Um, because at the end of the day, you just got to take it's a blessing, you know. You can't take it for granted.
Definitely, I fully appreciate that. And obviously, rest in peace, Kobe. I think 2022 a
Absolutely.
really cruel year, especially Chadwick Boseman received rest in peace thoughts for his
hmm
family and stuff. Obviously, like to you, obviously say you played alongside Kobe. What were some of your memories of him, either as a fan watching it when you're painting your room, or being on the court of him?
Yeah.
What was that like?
It was awesome, man. And like you said, rest in peace, Kobe. It was a surreal moment this summer because, like I said, my son really got into basketball, and he knew Kobe. He got, he's been around him because when I was out in LA with the Clippers, and then after he passed away, yeah, I remember my son calling me and telling me the news, like, "Hey, did you hear?" And I was in South Korea when it happened, and I'm like, "No." And then it was, that's when all the memes come out with, the kids in this generation will never shoot a piece of trash into a trash can and say Kobe. They won't know what that is. But my son was like, every time he shoots it out in the backyard, he's like, Kobe. And I'm like, that puts a smile on my face because he knew who he was and he will remember. And I remember telling him, like, I'm like, your dad, I dunked on Kobe. And he's like, no, you didn't. No, you didn't. I'm like, yeah, I did. And it was like, it's on YouTube. So we go in the house and luckily I found the game and, I showed him the clip where I dunked on him. He was in the picture, and he's like, "Yeah, so you're better than Kobe." I'm like, "No, I'm pretty sure Kobe went off for about 30 points after that." So, but it's awesome because my son has that love and that memory of meeting Kobe, and he'll always remember who he was. So
Definitely. And when you're on the court in that experience, were there ever players you sort of like? Because I imagine as a competitor, you want to be like get one up on a certain player.
hmm
Oh, not horribly, but you're
yeah.
like, I really hope that I'm playing against Shaq or I'm playing against X, Y, Z. Were there players you sort of really enjoy these battles? Obviously, you had quite a few years in the NBA. You probably locked horns
hmm
with players. Who was sort of one of the
Yeah.
players you really enjoyed playing against?
Man, I wish I would have. I was in Oklahoma City when we played against the Mavericks, but I never really got to guard Dirk. And he was somebody I looked up to growing up, and I wanted to be like so bad. Uh, but just watching him play now, sitting courtside because I never really got to guard him. It's just amazing the stuff that he can do. I mean, he's someone that runs down the court, and you're thinking he's hurt, right? He can't move, and then he comes down, and he blows by somebody that is fast, and it's just like it's not about who the quickest is. It's footwork, and that's when you see stuff like that. So he was somebody I watched a lot. Andre Bargnani was somebody I watched a lot. Chris Bosh, them spread four guys who could step out, hit the three, and also take it off the dribble. And now you're sitting here playing against these guys that you've watched, and it's just like I said, it's just a surreal moment because, and that's one thing I wish I could have got been able to do is play against Dirk, just to say I had that opportunity. But he, like I said, he killed us in the Western Conference Finals though, so um, I got to watch that. I got to watch that firsthand.
Charles. And were there on the other end of the spectrum, were there players who you really didn't like playing against, either though the trash talk you or dunk on you? Were there players who maybe that didn't,
Uh,
but you relished the battle, maybe?
Obviously, Kevin Garnett is probably one of the biggest trash talkers I've ever played against. But if you sit here and ask me, that's probably the best guy. Obviously, he's a great dude. He'll do anything for you if your teammate, whatever. He's somebody you can go talk to and ask him, you basically to work with you. But he's the biggest trash talker I've ever played against. But he's the guy that I've had my best games against because that just got me going. It got me motivated because I don't know if it obviously everybody respects everybody on the court, but it was kind of like I had to prove something to him, and that's when he was in Boston, and I think I did. I believe I did, but to him it was just like from the get go, from the beginning of the game to the end of the game, it was like you're trash. You're not. Um, but I had my best games against him, so I love the guy.
Definitely, that's good to hear. I mean, you also just mentioned the lockdown season. I'd love to get your thoughts. And
Yeah.
obviously, that presented a lot of challenges, and obviously, we've got a different set of challenges with COVID. But what lessons did you learn from how you prepared yourself for lockdown season, but you could use for COVID, sort of as a lesson learned?
You better have your financial situation in order because the obviously with the lockdown situation, we knew it was going to end. We knew it was going to. Everybody was going to come to an agreement. We picked up the season in December, and we were supposed to start in November, I believe, October, November. Um, so a lot of people missed out on a partial little bit of their money. But with the COVID situation, it's completely different because you don't know when it's going to end. Obviously, we're fortunate enough here in London um, that we're even playing these exhibition games, and we're hoping that our games are going to start on the 22nd, and the season's going to start, on October 2nd. But we don't know. I mean, we thought these championship games were going to be starting on the 15th, and they got pushed back already. Um, and I haven't heard. I haven't heard any. I think Spain might be playing, but everyone's playing with no fans, so it's kind of a scary moment. I mean, obviously this COVID stuff is bigger than basketball. But at the end of the day, like there's people out here like losing their jobs, right? And pretty much like losing their homes because they can't pay their bills because they don't have work. So yeah, this COVID thing's pretty scary. I mean, outside of the people getting sick, I mean people were financially you know going off the deep end. So prayers
Definitely,
go out to everybody.
definitely, and obviously credit to everyone at London to putting on these exhibition games to give the fans back home something to watch. I personally really
Yeah.
enjoyed that second game. We'll talk about it a bit more in a second. I sort of still want to see it with the NBA. obviously you played with a lot of teams, different coaches. What team and style play did you enjoy most, and maybe what sort of coach sort of gave you that best bit of advice in terms of improving your game?
Um, Man, there was two coaches. When I got to Charlotte, Paul Silas was the coach there, and he was a coach that I've known for a long time because throughout my high school career, he coached like our Adidas national team that I was on in high school, and we kind of bonded there. And then when I got to Charlotte, he was there, and he just kind of pulled me in, gave me a hug. It was like, man, glad to have you here. Glad to be able to coach you again. I know what you can do, and I want you to do it. Which was, spread the floor, step out, hit the three, which Scott Brooks didn't want me doing in Oklahoma City. So it's really, if you get in the right situation on these teams and with the right coaches, your game goes to a whole new level. Prime example of that is Boris Diaw. 'Cause when Boris was in Charlotte, um, he was just a just a basketball player. Great teammate, great guy, great player, but nobody knew who he was. And really, he was in Phoenix. He made his role in Phoenix and then got to Charlotte. But then he goes to San Antonio and he's part of a championship team and he's a big role on that team because the coach knows how to play him. You know what I'm saying? So Paul Silas helped me get into that comfort zone really of spreading the floor. And then Mike Dunlap came the second year. Um, and he kind of told me right from the get go, he's like, hey, you're my starting four. This is what we're going to do. And I want you to know from right now, from the end of the season, I'm not going to change my mind about it. And sometimes you get them coaches where, okay, maybe you're having an off night and they're like, oh, nope, we don't want you to do that anymore. Paul and Mike Dunlap were 100% through and through. Even if I had an off night, all night, whatever it was, they were with me the whole way. So respect to those guys. Yes.
Definitely, and obviously we were talking about how you guys who play behind closed door, maybe Spain as well. Have you sort of been watching any of the NBA bubble? What have your thoughts watching that as a fan, if you have been? And what do you think about Dallas? Obviously, the first round with Clippers, obviously losing but
Man,
playing really well.
the Clippers got lucky. Porzingis did not finish out that series. I'm telling you, Dallas is going to be a problem for many years to come because there's no way Mark Cuban's going to get rid of Porzingis or he's going to get rid of Lucas. So, uh, Lucas, he's going to be something, man. He's going to be probably the biggest star who's played the game. Look what he's doing already, and he's 20, 21 years old. It's just it's crazy, and it goes back to where he's came from. I mean, he was doing this in Real Madrid when he was 17 years old. So he's not really your typical rookie or second year player. He's been playing against
Certainly
stronger
exposure.
men. Yeah, you think he's worried about Marquise Morris hitting him in the face? Like, no, this dude came. He
Definitely
was
not.
just playing in the EuroLeague and ACB, so uh, he's going to be a problem for a long time. And the Dallas Mavericks is going to be really good. But
Definitely.
yeah, I haven't watched much of the bubble. Just one, I don't think we really get it over here. Uh, I look it up on the ESPN app, see what's going on and stuff. But it's crazy. They're talking about starting a season down there next year in the bubble.
Yeah.
To start the season off. I don't I don't know.
No, I think sometimes there's things bigger than basketball, especially with the race inequalities issue, COVID. It must.
Yeah.
My thoughts with players having to sort of battle being um, uh, someone who people to look up to, but also be playing on the floor. The two don't match easily, and it's very hard for them to sort of promote social justice, but also kind of. Oh, we've lost Byron for a second. They are. Must be very difficult. And I can imagine you not had much time because the games are much later over here, and obviously you've been really busy. Obviously, after that 13, 14, do you hear me okay, Byron? One sec, so we just sort of sort out here. While we wait for Byron, obviously, just a quick message. You coming to the channel first
Can you hear
time,
me?
Upstream. Oh, you hear me? That's great. I was just saying for people who haven't come to the channel who are like, oh, we really enjoyed this interview, want to know a bit more about the channel. So I'll just say Upstream Media, great independent media company who's during this last season streamed NBL D1 basketball for Thames Valley Cavaliers, and this obviously has been doing great player interviews. So obviously, different channel, like to subscribe and keep up to date if everything's going on.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, to hear you fine, Byron. So obviously after that, you went to Clippers a 13-40 season under Doc Rivers. What was that like? What was that as a experience?
Hello?
Can you hear me? One second. We'll get back to the talk shortly. So do you hear us?
Hello,
Yeah, I can hear you. Yep. So I was just saying, Byron, obviously we talked a bit about your time in Charlotte, but you went to LAC. What was that like for that season? One second. I'm not sure. Bathroom. Can you hear me okay, Byron?
Sorry about that. Can you hear me?
That's right. Yeah, you're back and you see you fully on the stream, so that's great. So I was just saying, obviously, that's okay. It's okay. Again, thank you for coming on. Because obviously, I know only the other day you were just in Belgium playing basketball, so I really appreciate being able to connect at short notice post game.
Yeah.
Obviously, talked a bit about your time in Charlotte, and then you obviously went to LA Clippers. What was that like as an experience?
LA was kind of, honestly, it was kind of scary going into, because they had a lot of big stars out there, right? They had Chris Paul, Blake Griffin, DeAndre Jordan, all these guys, and I didn't know how these guys were going to be. Obviously, LA is a different animal within itself, and being a country boy, I'm from Ohio, so. But when I got out there, all these guys were great. All these guys were welcoming. Blake Griffin is one of my best friends now. We just kind of connected from the get-go, and but LA was kind of really a downfall for me. Doc called me and was like, hey, because I played great games against the Celtics. And like I said, playing against KG. And he was like, hey, we want you to come out here. We want you to be a spread four. You're going to play about 20 to 22 minutes a game. When DJ gets DeAndre Jordan, once we get in them situations where they're kind of found him, we're going to put you in. I'm like, okay, yeah, great. This is a great situation. I go out there. I get out of the lineup, kind of pretty much out of that rotation, and it was kind of hard to get back into because we were a team that really never practiced, and so once I got out, it was kind of really hard to get back into. And Doc really didn't play me any way that he told me he was going to play me. So they ended up trading me to Philadelphia, and Philadelphia was in a tank season for pretty much the rest of that year and the following year. I had a player option. And I opted out of my player option because I had an offer in China that was bigger than what I was basically making in the NBA. And I just figured, China, it was a 6-month season. I go out there and play for 6 months. I'll come home in February, join a playoff team. Perfect world. That was what was going to happen. Unfortunately, it didn't. And that was my career in the NBA so far. There was times I obviously I want to go back. There was a time where I finished up the G League in Orlando with the Lakeland Magic, and I went down there to finish up the season, got Player of the Month, averaged crazy numbers. Where I was like, yeah, I'm gonna get called up from a team, for sure. And it just never happened. And I'm like, well, you know what? I'm just gonna finish out my career overseas. I'm gonna go travel the world. I'm gonna go see places that I would never get to see if it wasn't for basketball. And that's just kind of what where I'm at today. So
definitely, and you've done some really interesting places like China, Turkey, UAE, Iran, Japan, Korea, and Spain.
mm-hmm.
As you say, it's a perfect opportunity to explore places, see new cultures. What are some of sort of the highlights for you in terms of places you see? Because obviously, having that career basketball only a part of your life. It's obviously a life outside basketball. What were some of the things that you got up to? Some places you really enjoyed? Some of the best times on the road?
One of my biggest places I'm glad I really went to was I'm glad I went to go play in Iran, because in America
just like anywhere, the news portrays places to be this bad place, right? And obviously back home, the American news, see, whatever you want to call it, they portray these Middle Eastern countries to be these horrible places. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go play there. I'm going to go see firsthand how this is. And I got to Iran, and it was probably one of the best places I've ever been. You know, friends, my teammates were great. And I talked to my teammates about the news portraying Iran to be this horrible country or whatever. And he's like, dude, listen, our news here, they portray American to be the same way. And
Mhm.
I got a whole different view on it. And first thing I did when I went back home was told all my friends and family about, no, like, these people out here these are great people, and it's unfortunate that the way the news portrays certain countries and certain places to be, you know, there's places back home worse than there were places in Iran. So it's just like everywhere. Everywhere's got their bad parts, they got their good parts, they got their good people, they got their bad people. But you can't judge a certain religion off of one person, and that's what I've learned when I went there. And maybe I was that typical American person before I went there. It's like, hey, these people are bad. These people are bad. But no, man, that was probably one of the best places I'm glad I went and played for that reason. So,
Definitely, it's
but yeah, man, I've seen some amazing places. I played in Dubai. I played in South Korea. Was another place that people back home were like, man, you're going to go to South Korea, because the first thing that people think of is North Korea. It's like, listen, man, like, South Korean people don't like North Korean people either. So it's like, South Korea was awesome. I loved it. Seoul was one of the best cities, there is. And it's like, it's just so crazy because this little orange basketball can take you so many places, and places that you'd never even dream of even going. So I'm very blessed.
definitely, and I say lots of different cultures, lots of different, I guess,
Yeah.
also basketball philosophies going there. What were some of your highlights abroad on the court? Were there sort of teams that you really gelled with, or championships won? What were some of the highlights for you on the court there?
Um, I mean, just those runs we made in Oklahoma City. Obviously, were highlight those at the moment. At 20 years old, you don't see it. But now looking back, I'm 31. Looking back, and I'm telling my kid, like, hey, I was on that team with James Harden, and he's like, huh, James Harden? And I'm like, yeah, we had Russell and KD, and we got pictures of my son with these guys. It's just awesome because now my son is like, oh my god, I can't believe I met KD, and it's like, yeah, man, like, you were hanging out at KD's house, So it's awesome because it's just those memories that I'm blessed to have that I can pass down to him, and I can, hopefully one day he'll let me train him and be patient with me. So, like I said, man, I've been so blessed in my career.
Definitely, and I think having someone to sort of tell their stories to, and see your child grow into the man and
Mm-hmm.
help him with his life, I'm sure that'd be a really rewarding role when that time
Yeah.
comes. And obviously, after that move, you were saying in South Korea, and a place you went to, obviously you find yourself in the UK with London Lions. We talked a bit
Mm-hmm.
earlier how, for you it's really important to play in Europe for London, obviously, hopefully for national team. But so that first contact with Finns and the Lions, how did that come about? What were you doing at the time? What were some of those discussions like?
Well, with before leading up to signing here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously, like I said, we talked about earlier, going back to 2012 with the national team. It's been a team that I've always tried to play on the national team every chance I get. But like I said, due to injuries and some teams, basically being pricks that didn't let me out for that national team break. So that was one thing that led into it, and another thing was just due to the whole COVID situation. Just a lot of teams weren't really signing anybody. But like I said, this team that we're putting together is bigger than basketball. We're trying to do something, and that's never been done in London in basketball history in London, period. So, I talked to DeAndre a lot leading up to me signing here because obviously he was out here before I got out here. And I played with DeAndre for 2 years in Sioux Falls in the G League. So me and him go way back. And he just had nothing but great things. Because that's something, when you go somewhere, you're always trying to find out who's on the team because you're always hitting them up on Messenger or whatever. Like, hey, man, how's it going? How's the coach? How's the players? And he had nothing but great things to say. And that goes a long way because you get on some of these teams overseas and it's just like the coaches just don't know what they're doing. They're running practices for 3 to 4 hours at a time. And it's just like, you don't want to deal with that, as a older player, because it takes years off your career. You want a player's coach. Like Vince is great. You can talk to Vince. You can I love Vince because even in heated situations that where maybe the game's not going your way, you can still go up to Vince and he'll calm down and you guys can have a full on conversation. Whereas if you go like in South Korea, obviously there's a language barrier where you're speaking through a translator in a heated situation and then the coach just snaps on you. You don't want to be in that situation. You don't want to play for a coach like that. So that goes a long way. And obviously the city, where you're at, how's the food, how's the people you're around every day. You just want to be in an all, great situation, no matter where you're at. So, and here in London, it has everything that you look for.
Definitely. And I'm interested, you mentioned DLG Legends. So when I was looking up, I saw that you're both in the same class. And obviously, you both played G League. When did you guys first meet? Because I imagine you'd say,
Mhm.
I say, you're probably quite long back. When did you guys first sort of connect as players on the court or just in passing?
Mhm.
Sorry, do you hear me there? Okay, Byron.
Yeah, so we're the same class. So I'm sure, yes, I'm sure we've crossed paths playing AU ball together. But we teamed up in Sioux Falls. Uh, yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I'd hear you fine. Yes,
You can
Sioux
hear me,
Falls.
Chris?
Yeah, I'd hear you fine, Byron. You come through amazing.
Okay. Yeah, we teamed up in Sioux Falls. So we teamed probably 2014, I believe it was. Okay.
Yeah, sorry, it's a little bit glitchy, but yeah, I caught what you said there. And then obviously, you've not been
I
with
think
the team
I'm
long.
frozen.
Apologies for that. I think that's the British internet. We've had problems with this before, unfortunately. Let me hear me. So I'd like to sort of go a bit deeper in those two games. Obviously, the first one wasn't streamed, but obviously the second one was, and you guys got the win in the second game. What? Oh, this one. I haven't scared him off. I'm sure he's back in a second. Probably just refresh to get the screen back. While he starts, just a reminder, so obviously I mentioned earlier, London Lions are playing the Lithuanian team Neptunus on the 22nd of September. That's obviously a provisional date. I believe playing Bulgaria, obviously. I'm sure the whole British basketball community want to get behind them as they embark on an amazing adventure, and hopefully they'll qualify. If not, they'll go to a separate European tournament. You right there?
Yeah, sorry, I came out and had to keep logging back in. Sorry about that.
That's all right. We'll wrap it up a little bit. As I say, I think the internet's getting a bit
No
worse,
problem.
and I'm descending to darkness.
No.
So obviously we couldn't see the first game, and obviously I appreciate you had very little time to prepare physically for it after that travels. But what were the key lessons about first game you took to second game? Because I thought you played really well as a team. Obviously got the win. What were some of the things you learned from day one?
Yeah, day one. I mean, the first game obviously was just all about being resilient. I mean, the game one was pretty much we're going to see. Obviously we know everybody's tired. We have every excuse to come out here and just lay it down. We just got off the bus. Nobody's eating anything. We're all tight from being crammed on this little bus. it was more game than anything. We kind of all knew it was going to be not our day, because given the situation. But a lot of people in that game, you probably would have thought, man, there's nothing we can take from this game, but there's a lot we could, and we showed that the next game. We all knew, like, hey, we have no excuse now. Like, now we got to come out and now we got to play and give it to these guys and let them know what kind of team we brought together, and I think we did that. Obviously, a lot of things we could have done. I think at the end of the first quarter, we had 3 turnovers. I mean, at the end of the first half, we had 3 turnovers, and that's just crazy, because the first game, I think we ended up having 17 the whole game.
Wow.
I don't know what we ended up with at the end of the game too, but and that's our first time playing against teams, with each other. So I can go to Denmark and play against them games up there, and it's just gonna be a short week this week because I think we got practice tomorrow, and I believe we leave Thursday. So it's gonna be interesting to see what we do tomorrow. We do all the plays a lot, not so much play, but we get up to Denmark Thursday. Hopefully we'll have a little practice or whatever. So yeah, man, it's just fun. This is a great group of guys. You put any of these guys on a team by themselves, they're averaging 20 points easy. And so it's gonna be fun because we know what everybody can do on this team. To see how we're all gonna gel together is gonna be fun.
Definitely, I like what you say about individually each trying to get 3 points. It felt like everyone sort of taking turns to have a hot streak. He had the hot streak in the first. Justin had that hot in the third/fourth, and then DeAndre still had that big second half. And obviously, at first quarter, he played amazing. He had some threes. I think he got like 13 points. Why do you think that happened in the way it did? Do you feel like the guys even got a space in? What went well that first quarter for you, especially?
The second game?
Yeah, the second game, yeah.
I think it's just getting rest and getting my feet under me. I mean, obviously, Vince knows why he brought me here, and that gives me as a player a lot of confidence too, because I was pissed at myself after the first game I played because I could not buy a bucket. I mean, I could not make a shot. And usually you have a coach come up to you and really talk to you about it, but Vince didn't say nothing to me, because he knew the situation and the circumstances that we were in, coming off the bus and all that. And then that just kind of gave me confidence. I'm like, that's not going to happen again, and then the second game I just came out and was just, and that's, shooters shoot. And it's the saying, shooters have short memories. You miss 5 shots, but you know what? That next one's going to go in. And that's really how you got to believe. Because I could have been down on myself. I don't know what I was the first game, probably 0 for 6 from the 3-point line. But I came out and I got that first open look on the 3-point line. I threw it up there and it went in. So, and then once I've seen the first one go in, I came down, shot 2 or 3 more, and they went in. And it's just, you get your confidence back, man. It's just, you just gotta always shoot. You can never get down on yourself, and you just always gotta think the next one's going to go in. So, and my teammates were right there with me, and they knew that that I can shoot the ball and I can spread the floor, and they gave me a lot of confidence too.
Definitely, and I know you've not had too many training sessions, but if you could give us a picture of how you feel preseason's going, have there been like any exciting plays or exciting bits? Wow, I'm really looking forward to seeing us do something similar to that without revealing the secret sauce, but some things that you feel like you guys are really gelling together in certain aspects.
Oh man, I can talk about it everybody, but on our defensive end, we're so long. I mean, you got DeAndre Liggins who's got almost a wingspan. You got Kevin Ware, whose wingspan is outrageous. You got guys like can guard 1 through 5. And Josh the other day, because we actually had to go small ball there in the fourth quarter, and he was on the big, and he was guarding the hell out of that guy, just being a pest. And I told Josh at the end of the game, I'm like, dude, that obviously he's played a while. He knows this, but it's nice to hear it. Like, dude, that's how you got to play against big guys, because me as a big, I hate it for a little more, like for undersized bigs being in me, like he was in that guy being a pest and getting up in his chest. He took on the advantage. He took on the challenge of guarding him, and Josh is someone that can grab the shit all the way up the floor. So I mean, it's going to be a fun year to see, just not on the offensive side of, but what we can defense. I know the first quarter we held them to 13 points, which is pretty good. I mean, they got a couple easy buckets. I know at the 5-minute mark, they probably had 4 points the other day, 6 points, and they ended the quarter with 13. So they got a couple baskets that we pretty much gave them to make it 13. But, you know, it doesn't matter what team you're playing against. 13 points in a quarter is doing work on the defensive side. So it's going to be fun.
Definitely. Obviously, I appreciate you not practicing tomorrow, but you've obviously got to go off to Denmark, back in Bears. I really appreciate you coming on, especially in light of that you've literally just played 2 games for Belgium. Really appreciate that. Is there sort of a message to finish up that you'd like to sort of send to the London Lions fans about maybe your personal ambitions for the season?
Yeah, thanks
but
for having
also,
me again.
You're welcome. I thought maybe finish off maybe your personal ambitions and maybe your team's ambitions for the season, just to sort of get those Lions fans that tune in excited even more so than they already are for the upcoming season.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Sorry, so what are you looking to get from this season?
It's totally different this year, obviously, with the COVID stuff, and we don't know if fans are going to be allowed to come.
Sorry, Karen.
Personally, obviously the BBL champs are our goal, but our main goal, you know, obviously to get that Champions League, you know, get into that.
Definitely,
I think I'm frozen.
No, it's all right. Yeah, that Champions League is really important. I mean, for me personally, I tend to cover NBL, but I think it's really important that the British basketball community really gets behind you guys. I think that's going to be really exciting, and I think it's a really exciting journey, you guys. I'm very jealous of any London Lions fan at the moment. I think if you guys have a real successful season, I think it would inspire a lot of teams to look at doing the Basketball Champions League. It would get a lot of new eyes on the sport. Obviously, with your background, you obviously haven't, obviously want to be in the national team. When you're on the road and, with the players you're with, what are people's thoughts about British basketball and the national team? Because I think sometimes we're a bit under the radar. Is that the impression you get when, through your career, but when you talk about England basketball? What are some of the things you hear from on the circuit? Sorry, can you hear me? I'm refrozen there.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, 2012.
I'll say I was waiting for the freeze. I think I really appreciate Byron coming on. I think actually might be really good time to cut the interview short just to say technical difficulties. If Byron comes on, we'll say a quick goodbye. 1 second, we got him back. He's logged in. I think he's just logged in a few seconds for that. Get his opinions. I think it's really good to.
All right, can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you now. Yep.
Sorry about that. I keep freezing and I got to keep reloading it.
No. Yeah, no, I really appreciate you coming on. Yeah, so just want a few thoughts on how you see British basketball is, and maybe sort of what you think this season could actually bring to the table for the British basketball.
Yeah, like I said, I'm hoping to obviously, you know, British basketball is on the map here, but we're looking to really make big moves here for history, make history here in London, here in England. So, you know, there's a reason why this group of guys is brought together. Obviously, our goal is to achieve all those goals, and anything short of that would be a failure. so we all realize what's at stake here, and I think that's what's going to make it even more fun for us because we're going to get everybody's best. You know, everybody's going to, when they play us, it's going to be their championship game. So, and we're looking forward to that, and we know that. So, that's what excites everybody on this team.
Definitely. I wish you all the best. So thank you, Deb, for coming on. Good luck in Denmark, and obviously, fingers crossed the Neptunus game goes ahead on 22nd. You take care now and stay safe. I'm sure we'll be in touch shortly. You take
Yes,
care
sir.
now.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. Thanks everyone for tuning in, and stay safe. And we're back again soon with more content. Take care and goodbye.